very welcome to the Centre Culturel Irlandais tonight. I hope you'll enjoy the evening. Before I introduce these our two speakers for this evening, I'd like to just tell you a little bit about the evening. So obviously we're opening our exhibition, our Paris Photo exhibition by Dragana Jurisic, My Own Unknown, tonight. We also, though, have an exhibition in Espace Lomont, which is just if you go out the back gates of the Centre Culturel, it's kind of an extension of the Centre Culturel Irlandais for the weekend. And Vivian Gamble from Scene 15 will be showing work by 3 Irish artists, Kieran Ogue, Arnold, Megan Doherty and Martin Seeds. So I'd urge you to go and see those exhibitions as well once we finish the talk. There are open studios as well by Carl Burke and also by our designer in residence, Genevieve Howard. And you might like to stay and have a crepe as well and a few drinks. So now I'd like to hand over and I would like to congratulate Dragana on her wonderful exhibition, which you'll be able to see shortly. And I'll hand over to Dragana Jurisic, artist of the exhibition, and Natasha Christia, curator.
Good evening, everybody. We are very happy to be here. We are very happy and honored to be able to work here and to show Dragana's work at this beautifully placed and marvelous institution, Iris Centre Culturel of Paris. We have to apologize because our French is quite basic, so the talk, given also the circumstances and the space we are in, will be held in English. My name is Natasha Christia. I have accompanied Dragana in this adventure, the setup of this exhibition that through which her work, My Own Unknown, is presented now for the first time to the public, to the audience in its full form. And I would like to introduce you a little bit to Dragana and to the install and in the exhibition we are going to see, because we don't have so much time. So the idea is for us, both of us, to provide you with some key information and some probably insights on what you are going to see. And then during the opening, you are more than welcome to approach us and to do any questions or to express any opinions you would like about the work. So Dragana Jurisic comes from a lost country, ex-Yugoslavia, and is currently based in Dublin, Ireland. Dragana came into prominence in 2013-2014 with her first acclaimed internationally project, You, My Lost Country, a personal exploration of her home country after a decade of absence, recovering the steps of the writer Rebecca West in Black Lamp in Grey Falcon, a travelogue book published in 1941. In You, Dragana was referring to her efforts was coupling image and text, her own images and her own photographs and her own testimonies, alongside the testimonies and the texts of Rebecca West, to describe her journey through the countries that now used to conform ex-Yugoslavia. And in that work, she talks at the end about the impossibility of return, coming back, the return to a place that has become an unknown place, where photographs and words are unable to consolidate the existent memories, but create a new visual and conceptual imaginary of what our home country is, or where our home is, and what our identity is. She doesn't consider herself an expatriate, since she lives in Dublin, but rather a person in exile, a person who comes from a lost country. And after 2014, she has used the same elements here, the two languages that are very important to her, photography and text, written text. Dragana is a very good photographer, but as you are going to acknowledge during the exhibition, is a very an excellent writer. She brought these existential questions, but also very deeply personal questions, but also universal questions to the realm of a very private realm, to the realm of private identity and family identity, and her identity also as a woman artist, as a woman writer, and as a woman person, a woman in the 21st century. So what you're going to see in the room are bits and fragments of the identities of three women, and I invite Dragana to let us know a little bit more about these three mysterious women, fragmented identities that emerge, through the waters of a river, the waters of a Rost river. Their identities emerge in the install. The first woman is her aunt, Gordana Chavic, a mysterious woman who lived in Paris, who spent 2-3 decades of her life in Paris during the 50s and the 80s. The second woman is L'Inconnu de la Seine. You probably know her very well. A woman who was supposedly drowned on the river Seine in Paris in the end of the 19th century, and who became a muse for male, especially artists and writers. And the third woman is Dragana herself. So I invite her to let us know a little bit about these three women and the story that unfolds through the different elements of the series, the project, My Own Unknown.
Okay, before I start, Marina and Lana, there is 2 seats for you in front. So, sorry, logistics. Well, the first chapter is Gordana Chavic, who is a member of my family, the one member that people didn't really talk about a lot. And I started, I remembered her first in 2013. I was doing a research for a spaghetti western film that I want to make, next project. And I'm not joking, I'm really making a spaghetti western. And I went to see a grave of my grandmother in this small village in Slavonija in Croatia, and my eye wandered over to a grave of a really beautiful, glamorous woman, and it was etched in black marble, and everywhere around it was really kind of tatty crosses. This area of Croatia is really poor. And it just jogged my memory a little bit, and then I had this memory of being at her funeral, age 11. She died in 1987. And I started making inquiries about who she was and what happened to her. And most of the people I interviewed gave me a very different accounts on who this person was. There were stories of that she was a government spy for Yugoslav government, that she did not comply with this role because she wanted to. She was forced into this role. And there are other stories, like that she was perhaps involved in sex industry. I didn't really get anyone to confirm this. These were all rumors. But it was interesting kind of port of departure, looking at a woman, in 1950s in ex-Yugoslavia, trying to run away from an oppressive system and trying to be free, and again ending up being oppressed by the same forces that she was running away from. So all this question kind of came to my mind: is there a way for a woman to be free in a society as it is today? And then her story kind of intercepted with my French accent is awful, by the way, so do not judge me. L'Inconnu de la Seine, this woman who allegedly drowned in a river, as Natasha said, at the end of the 19th century. And I started kind of weaving two of the stories that are both fictionalized biographies in an attempt to write my new book. So this is a new project. And then I guess I'm a third person, the narrator, but then we diverged into 100 Muses projects and all these different things that are trying to answer the questions about what is to be a woman today, really. And I was also thinking a lot about the idea of a muse. You know, L'Inconnu de la Seine was a muse to so many artists, from Man Ray to Nabokov, Rilke. They all made a work about her, and she was this, you know, dead mask of a girl that perhaps never existed, but, you know, she was a perfect target for projecting kind of imagined identities onto. And then, you know, my aunt was a sort of a muse to me as well, and also a sort of a person that would make a great kind of detective movie or thriller film. She was complying or falling into boxes of everything that is kind of, you know, the stereotypes of Eastern European women. You know, you're either a spy, a prostitute, or a cleaner, you know. So, I mean, it's true. And so, yeah, I was trying to answer very complicated question that I don't think I answered. I mean, it's called My Own Unknown for a reason. But I was trying to get at it at many different points of departure.
Up to which point do you have the feeling that the story you narrate is? I mean, it's an. I would describe it as a fictionalized autobiography. You know, it's very personal, but at the same time, it is also very universal. I think you mentioned something about the representation of women and how are all these women entangled in. How are they defining their identity? Are they able to define their identity in history? For example, in your case, the case of Gordana, there is this allegation. She was allegedly a spy, and the historical background. I mean, your work is very, very aesthetic and very personal, but there is a very strong historical background behind of also. The Cold War era, the oppression of ideas of people.
I mean, I guess the work kind of follows logically from You, the Lost Country, my last book that was about losing national identity and losing country. And, you know, what does it mean? How important it is to have kind of belong to these kind of boxes of I'm French or I'm Croatian or I'm Serb. And, you know, I kind of use my own projects as a way of resolving internal conflicts. And You, the Lost Country book resolved a conflict for me of not wanting to belong to anyone. I'm very happy to be free. And exile is, if you pass this kind of traumatic stage of it, it's a very freeing state of being, not having or desire to belong. But in terms of, I'm totally lost myself.
In terms of where does My Own Unknown bring you, or where does My Own Unknown bring these women and the identities of these women?
Well, of course, the story of Gordana Čavić follows on from also a specific period in history with Yugoslavia in 1950s. Well, it was still closed borders, and I don't know. It's a story of trying to negotiate freedom. I'm not sure, actually, that I'm answering your question. But I think what is important to mention that we didn't, when I was talking about L'Inconnu de la Seine and about this idea of the muse, and I was thinking who she was, if she existed, and I started, you know, looking at lots of like visual representation of muses in art. And I discovered that in Western art tradition, you know, it's one of the biggest cliches. Muses are usually nude and usually painted by men. And I was wondering how would I approach the similar topic. So it was an experiment. I invited 100 women to be photographed nude in my studio in Dublin, not having any plan how I'm gonna do this and it was overwhelming, the response of Irish women actually to this project, because I gave myself only 5 weeks to do it, and they came, And I just, the first person that came, I did the classical thing of a photographer trying to position, the subject or the model into this weird, like a puppet doll. And then, I just was feeling so uncomfortable, and I decided that I can't deal with this subject in such a way that I actually have to work as a facilitator here and make women the active agents in the process. So I, halfway through the shoot with the first woman, said, actually, please direct yourself. I only ask you one thing, look back at the camera and also choose your own image, at the end of the story. So I became a facilitator, and this became a collaboration, this whole project. And then, if you want to kind of spin even further, they became co-owners of the project. So they own, like...
Is it a little bit the response of contemporary women, probably female identity today? I mean, there is mass reivindication of identity, and the need also for the women to write history or to acknowledge the presence of women in history, or that history can be written also, is written by women, has not been written but will be written. Probably a different approach, to history, like. These women from Ireland, they are more active. They write their, they write their image themselves in the exhibition. While Lanconnu, for example, she's like more. She has turned into this victimized, involuntarily probably victimized, worshipped body, by the surrealists and by writers. And it's here the reading of her identity is for me as a misogynist reading in a way, and that wants to, woman exists as something, woman exists as something beautiful.
I forgot the name of the book actually. That. What was it? The writer who buys a dead mask of Lanconnu de la Seine and falls madly in love with her. And I think at some point says, the reason he loves her so much is because she doesn't talk back. I think, so yes, I think the way female characters were used, especially these kind of women that didn't have voice, was in a way misogynist, yes, and they fulfilled a very kind of, I don't know, prescribed roles that we all know about.
What about Gordana? I think it's interesting to explain how you reach her. You have in the exhibition, you will see that there are elements that evoke books, notebooks, but also the fragments of the future book by Dragana. Can you tell us a little bit about the process of discovering who Gordana was?
Well, the first person of discovery was my father, who is a kind of eccentric person with lots of strange connections everywhere. So I couldn't access her files because Yugoslavia, even if it doesn't exist, it's not like East Germany where you can go and access the files and see what actually was true and what wasn't true. So the first time I showed my interest in her to my father, I went to sleep that night, and in the morning I woke up and there was a note under my coffee cup with 3 names. And I said to my father, who are these names? And he said, these are her 3 husbands. And I said, well, then he proceeded to tell me the story, what he thinks happened to her. And he said, she managed to run away in 1950s, and, I think it was always allegedly, with a handball team that was playing in Paris. And allegedly she then married some Chetnik here, and allegedly he basically, what happened as a result of this, her mother was imprisoned back in Yugoslavia, and this was used as a way to force her into spying on the same people who helped her escape. So, but everything is allegedly. And as I said, other people that I interviewed during the project all told a very different story about who this person was. So it's this question about how well do you know anyone, including yourself, I think what we think about the people that we love the most or think we know the most, we just see a tiny reflection of their being. I mean, we don't really know who we are. It's a constant process of finding out and doing double takes and really, did I just behave like this? I mean, at least I am. I don't know about you, but I presume that there is a commonality here.
And in this sense, this exhibition is a compilation of bits and fragments. So I think the way the visitors approach the material is completely different, no? According to, because for somebody maybe the presence of Dragana in the show, your element can be stronger, and somebody else can feel more attached to Gordana or to Lankonu. There are many elements. And there is one connecting element in the exhibition, which for me it's actually a very, very tough exhibition. It's the topics that Dragana negotiates are very personal, intimate, but universal at the same time. And there is this connecting thread that may be probably misleading at some point. Beauty. What is beauty for you, and how do you employ the language of aesthetic language in this work, Dragana?
I employ beauty like carnivorous plants employ beauty. It's like tempt the viewer to come closer and then serve him with a punch in the gut. I think that's anyway intended. It's like you want to come closer, and then you get involved in text and image, and you're starting reading much more into this story than it looks from further apart. And also this fragmentation, because when you go into the exhibition, it's there is many different languages there. So it was trying to kind of replicate the way self-knowledge works. We are getting glimpses of ourselves. We don't have, it's not a trajectory that is paved out and really open and clear. It's just there are points of recognitions, and this is what I try to do.
Yes, in a way, the exhibition is an invitation to everyone to to find their own unknown, probably in the groups of images.
I was recently back at home, actually, and it was a very traumatic visit where I don't live at home for 20 years. And sometimes when you're away, you idolize your parents, and then you go back home and you realize why you actually left in the first place. And I was really sad. I mean, I love both of my parents, but I realized these people had no luxury of trying to get to know themselves, because their life was a life of constant trauma, of poverty, of war. And it's a really kind of, there is a big gap between me and them, me with kind of lofty, now kind of middle class lifestyle, trying to be disparaging about them who never tried to help themselves, but they really did not have a chance or opportunity, and not many people do have this, luxury to question their own existence, basically, and why they're here and who they are.
And probably we should have invited your parents too tonight
to
uncover their own unknown.